That's my friend Kath and her awesome husband, Steve. These are her beautiful kids. And here we are as kids. St. Ferdinand basketball. There's Kath, number 12, arguably the best player on the team. I was not. Best friends, though, right through puberty and all through high school. A lot of years in pounds and hair colors later, we are still sister friends today. And still with the hormones. Ugh. Now it's called menopause. Weren't many options back in the day for our mamas, Pat and Marlene, who were also best of friends. You're going to have to go through the change. Suck it up, Buttercup, they said. Well, today, Kath and millions of others are hoping to change that because you see, Kath's story is a hard-fought, heartfelt, been through hell, hallelujah story. A real and vulnerable overcomer story that affects the whole family. And Kath wants it to count for daughters Mary Kate and future generations. So we invite you in on this important conversation along with Kath's doctor, Dr. Dana Russo, as we ask the hard question, have we been missing the mark on menopause for generations?
I just thought, it's my annual appointment. I'll go to my doctor. I'll tell her that I'm starting to feel a little funky and maybe a little anxiety or whatever, heart palpitations. I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack because I don't know all these symptoms. I didn't have any of these books.
For Kath, the main effect of menopause was a hormone imbalance so severe it nearly cost her life. She found out firsthand menopause specialists are so undereducated and underrepresented, she said, in the world of medicine. And now the rally call is to shred the silence, to turn the tide with education and awareness on what Kath faced head on, what she believes is a marginalized or ignored health crisis for millions of women. Surviving to thriving. This is the Kathy Hilgart story. We're talking menopause today, and we know that the best good stuff often comes from the not so good stuff. This is a not so good stuff story that my friend Kath is willing to share. And if you're thinking menopause, does it affect me? I would say, yeah, it does. Even if you're not going through it, the side effects, the hot flashes, is anyone else hot in here? You probably know someone who has an aunt or a grandma. And here's the thing that my friend Kath and I are realizing, that there are much more serious effects of menopause beyond just the inconvenient, embarrassing ones like hot flashes. It can affect your heart. It can affect your bones. It's serious. And so for Kath, the only way out of it was faith, family support, and finding the right doctor. That was her story. It's one story, you guys, but it is so powerful and it is packed with so much potential. So that's why I'm going to bring in my friend Kath here right now. Kath, I know. Hi, friend. Hi.
Hello.
I love you. And I know that this was not an easy decision. You did a lot of soul searching. And for you, you feel like it's God calling you to tell your story for his glory. And that's what we're all about here. So give us a window, if you would. Take us back to that time when your world just completely changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was about 2 years ago, and I can't really put a finger on exactly how I was feeling. I just knew that I wasn't feeling myself. I just felt off. And because I was 52, I thought, maybe this is what menopause is like, or perimenopause. And I quite honestly didn't know much about either. I didn't know much about either one, but I was on my way in to see my OB-GYN for my annual appointment. And I asked her, I said, listen, I'm feeling weird these days. I'm having some strange symptoms. And I just thought perhaps I was in menopause at the age that I'm at. And could that be possible? And she said, we won't know unless you go off birth control pills. I had been on those for years. And so she said, unless you go off your hormones and go a full 12 months without a cycle, you're not going to know if you're in menopause. So that's kind of how she left it with me. And so I said, well, sure, let's see what we have here. So I went off the birth control pills, and in the next couple of months, things went downhill. I was having these weird feelings of not feeling right. I was having additional like heart palpitations. I was extra tired. I started to feel anxious. Now I'm thinking maybe could it be my heart? I would take my blood pressure at the health club and I would feel really lightheaded and I had low blood pressure. So I was actually making myself really nervous and scared, thinking maybe this is a heart issue. So I ended up having a massive panic attack, which I thought was a heart attack. So I ended up in the ER. And while I was in the ER, they ran all of the tests that they run and they came back and said, "You're fine. We can't find any problems. You are fine." And I wasn't fine. But they said, "Well, we're going to have you follow up with a cardiologist and a neurologist and then follow up with your doctor and we'll go from there." So after I did all the testing with the cardio, neuro, everything came out fine. I went to my regular doctor and she said, women your age tend to be more anxious and depressed. And it just she kept saying women your age. And this is kind of normal, which didn't make any sense to me. But she said, I'm going to give you a prescription for Lexapro. And at the time I had no idea what Lexapro was. I had no history of mental health issues. I had no anxiety or depression in my past at all. And I didn't quite understand why I would be taking an antidepressant. But, she said, she kept reassuring me that so many women my age take this and she writes scripts for women in Elmhurst all the time. So I went ahead and filled the prescription and it did not help me. In fact, I felt like it made me worse. I was having side effects from taking the antidepressant along with all of these, what I found out later were like my hormonal imbalance issues. So I went back after I gave it the 4 to 6 weeks. I was a mess. I was not leaving my house. I was I was not sleeping at night. I'd lay on the couch all day. I was basically a shell of myself. And I went back desperate to her and said, what are we going to do? And she's like, "Well, I can't help you anymore." And she's like, "I need you to see a psychiatrist. I can't continue to prescribe more medication." So long story short, I ended up seeing a couple of psychiatrists. I went into an outpatient program in the mental health world, and I was kind of stuck in that mental health arena for a time. I was seeing therapists. One woman called me lazy. I was tired. She called me lazy. So I was a mess, and I got so bad. I was so desperate. I put myself inpatient at a hospital and asked them to get me off all of the medications I was on. And they said, "That's not what we do here." And at that point, I thought my life was over. In fact, I nearly lost my life. I was in such a dark place. And somehow, with the grace of God, the support from my family and friends, I found Dr. Dana Russo, and she basically changed and saved my life.
So. Hello, Dr. Dana Russo. Wow.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, John.
There she is, my hero.
What she just said, it's a calling what you're doing, not just a career. So glad to have you here. What we're going to be talking about, you guys, is menopausal hormone therapy. Maybe you guys have heard it formerly referred to as HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. But when Kath gives you that great compliment saying that she was living in black and white and you allowed her to see color again, it's because it was a personal decision for you too, why you switched, right, Dr. Russo, even the way you were practicing medicine in order to honor that calling on your heart.
Yes, 100%. Well, thank you both for having me. I'm very appreciative, and mostly Kathy, I'm very proud of you for being so courageous to tell your story and share it. There's a lot for patients and physicians and friends and family to learn from it. So thank you for that. Yes, I mean, I started this practice about 8 or 9 years ago. I worked in a very busy OB-GYN practice. And for the most part, that ended up getting the better of my health. I had a series of autoimmune issues show up. I wasn't feeling well, and I eventually needed to take a medical leave from my practice. And it was during that time that I just started to take a deeper dive into my own health because I just was not feeling well. And during this time, I started to learn a lot about hormone replacement and sexual health for women. And I thought, this is really underrepresented, even in our own practices. I barely had time to talk about these matters with my patients in my old practice. And I thought, maybe I'll just open up a practice and focus on this and give women the time that they need to talk about their issues and see where it goes. And 8 or 9 years later, here we are with this thriving practice with women wanting to be heard. And that is what I did with Kathy when I met her. For the better part of an hour, I sat and listened to Kathy's gut-wrenching story of depression.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what you're doing. This is your company now. We want to be sure and put that up. Find your energy, find your confidence, and rediscover yourself. And if we need a visual, this spoke volumes to me. You don't have to be a doctor. Let me pull up this this visual that you gave us. So the brain, it seems, is literally showing us in this scan that it is brighter with estrogen. Essentially, what we're looking at here is brain activity pre and post menopause. Correct, doctor?
Correct. This is work from Dr. Lisa Moscani. This is called a PET scan. And this is something I show to every patient during my initial consultation to discuss hormone replacement. So on the left side, where it says premenopausal control, this is the red areas are showing where glucose is being taken up by the brain. So it's showing brain activity. So we want to see these bright red spots. It's showing brain activity. We want to see less of the darker areas. On the right side, the postmenopausal brain, we could see less of these red areas. And we see in the center, we see more of these darkened areas, and that's showing less activity. In fact, it's by this research looking about 30% less brain activity. And so I often show this to patients and say, you don't need to be a radiologist to look at these two images and realize that there's a significant difference. And what I say to patients is, it's not in your head, it really is in your head. Because I think this visual helps women see that there is quite literally changes going on in their brain, which has an impact on so many systems in their body. All these symptoms that women come in and talk about, I want to show them that there is scientific data that they can understand and validate their feelings and understand why they're having all these different symptoms, especially for Kathy. And her example was anxiety and depression that was driven by the fluctuation in her hormones.
As a symptom of menopause. And so let's show this as well then. Let me just pull up this picture is another image. These are the estrogen receptors in the brain. I love that you said, Dr. Russo, you said that the brain is saying, wait, hold up, what's happening? Where's the estrogen? I need it, right?
Yes. Again, this is also work from Dr. Moscani. So this was published last year. So on the left-hand side before menopause, she was able to tag estrogen receptors. So receptors are kind of like, tell patients, like these little arms that could come out and catch hormones. So if we have a lot of hormones, like on the left side, we have a lot of estrogen in the brain. We could see that there's some estrogen receptors. That's kind of that orangish, yellowish color. When we go into menopause and there's a lack of estrogen in the brain, these receptors do something called upregulate, meaning they come out plentiful in the brain, and they're quite literally looking for more estrogen. It is the brain's way of saying, where is the estrogen? I need it. And it is imperative for its function.
All right, I want to pull up this, and we want to remind people that, let me get rid of this picture here. We want to remind people that it's all individual. It has to be individual. So let's put this disclaimer up right now that treatment should be personalized based on a woman's individual health profile, including risk factors and medical history. But this is Kath's story. And Kath, your story is a happy ending now because of this menopausal hormone therapy, or HRT. That's your testimony, right, Kath?
100%. I didn't know that it was an option. I really didn't I didn't understand the whole scope of what Dr. Russo, when she explained to me receptors. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't realize going off the hormones that I was on for 20 plus years would affect me. I just thought that was what we do. We go off and we lose them, and then we're just have to get through. I had no idea there was an optimization that could take place, and I just didn't know. And thank God Dr. Russo explained it to me the way she did. It makes so much sense to me.
What was really important for Kathy's story is she was being treated for anxiety and depression, but that really was just a symptom of menopause. But it does have to be differentiated, if depression is in and of itself a major depressive disorder or it's menopausal depression. So first, that distinction really has to be made. And in Kathy's case, it was really related to menopause. And then when I start to talk about hormone replacement for patients, we talk about replacing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and the different ways in which we could get those hormones into a patient. We talk about the risk and benefits of all forms of administration for medications and which is best suited for that patient's lifestyle and situation.
Exactly.
So,
Individualized. But I thought it was interesting. Again, we could talk about this for hours, but you mentioned that there is a study that shows that groups who are on the SSRIs or the antidepressants and others on hormone replacement, a lot of times the hormone replacement ends up working, correct?
yes. So with menopausal depression, that's really important to identify that when we look at groups of patients with menopausal depression, first-line therapy should really be considered hormone replacement therapy over SSRIs. But if SSRIs or antidepressants are used, the hormone replacement or menopausal hormone therapy can augment those results. There was a study last May of 2023 looking at patients who had come in for menopausal consultation and they were on SSRIs or antidepressants. And they looked at adding estrogen and progesterone, and then looked at another group adding estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone and seeing how many patients would come off of their antidepressants. And there was a greater percentage of patients that actually got off their antidepressants with the testosterone therapy added to the estrogen and progesterone, showing that plays a pivotal role in cognitive function and mood as well.
I also had in my notes that you believe that you've weaned more women off of antidepressants in the 8 years, right, that you've been doing this. Is that correct? Than even all the 14 years prior as an OBGYN?
Yes, without a doubt. It wasn't necessarily something I was actually anticipating seeing until I experienced it firsthand. And a lot of it was oftentimes driven by their own observations and them telling me, like, I'm feeling good. I don't think I need this anymore. How do I wean off of this? And that is a process that you should be doing and discussing with your physician. No one should ever abruptly stop those medications, but it's certainly possible. And Kathy is a perfect example of how replacing the hormone therapy in a very short period of time, which is shorter than I actually anticipated in Kathy's case, but she was off of all her medications and all her symptoms were relieved just by hormone replacement. It was pretty dramatic.
It was 3 months. It was 3 months exactly.
Yeah, that you were off. It was quick, even by you were surprised too. I know, Dr.
Yes.
Russo. But Kath, what you were saying, and maybe this speaks to anyone listening right now, maybe you're going to relate to this, that when they say everybody's doing it, everybody's doing it. Come on, you can do this. Suck it up. You got to get through it. Everybody's doing the antidepressants. Kath, that was it was like a Band-Aid, and the words you used, down a rabbit hole. To anyone who's listening right now, Kath, what give them a window into what you experienced.
Well, I think the biggest thing was not knowing, not having the information in front of me. And like Dr. Russo mentioned, there's not enough specialists in this department or for this time of our life to talk to us all about it. I forget what the statistic was. Dr. Russo, remember you told me there were so many menopause specialists for so many people. What was that?
Here, I think I have it here, right here. Is this it, Dr. Russo?
Yes, that's it.
Tell us more and why this doesn't set well with you.
Yeah, this is from the U.S. A consensus. So there's one menopausal specialist, as you can see, for every 32,000 and change women. And it's probably just a function of our training. We actually, in our residency, which is for OB-GYNs 4 years, we actually don't focus a lot on menopausal training in our residencies. And this was just something that I just started to seek after I was out of my other practice to educate myself and learn more about. So it's just a function of our lack of training and then availability to patients for us to share our knowledge.
Right. And I thought this was interesting too. Kathy, you felt like the word I think you used was gaslighted. Did you feel like it was
100%? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've talked to so many women between 2 years ago and feeling better. You know, I'd say in the last year, I felt so good, at least the last 6 to 9 months. And I've been sharing my story just with women at the health club or just at church or school or wherever I might be. And we just will chat and they'll say to me, oh my gosh, I have heart palpitations, or I'm really tired. I'm so tired. Or, you know what? I'm not giving 100% to my husband. And I don't know why. I love my husband, but I'm just so tired. And the first thing I say now is, have you had your hormones looked at? And they look at me like I'm a screwball. They're like, well, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, just your estrogen, your testosterone, and your progesterone.
What I feel a big part of my job is to educate my patients and saying, yes, menopausal hormonal therapy will help alleviate those symptoms. But beyond that, what's it doing? And what's most important is that it's protecting your heart from heart disease. Women are 1 in 3 for cardiovascular events once they're in menopause, decreases the risk for cognitive decline, dementia, and Alzheimer's. It decreases our risk for osteoporosis. We know that menopausal hormone therapy decreases risk for colorectal cancer. It helps us keep our cholesterol in check. Our glucose helps us keep ourselves out of a state of insulin resistance, which increases our risk for other comorbidities and weight gain. So many of these symptoms that women have, but it's not just about treating symptoms. That, yes, it's very important, but it is about protecting our body from further medical issues down the line.
Yeah. So, Doctor, I know you are a huge fan. Anyone listening so far can already tell of Dr. Lisa Moscani, The Menopause Brain. This book for Kath has been like a Bible for her. And you guys sent me this paragraph, and I think it's worth spending as we start to kind of wind down this podcast. I think it's worth spending some time on this specific paragraph. Can you, Doc, can you see it enough to read the parts that you think are important for us?
Yes, I can. It says, given these tendencies, I'm sure you can imagine or recall, the response to any issues related to menopause being treated as fabricated or unimportant. More broadly, healthcare professionals have often engaged in a disheartening form of medical gaslighting where they have historically downplayed women's health issues as a whole, and specifically neglected women's concerns around their mental health. As patients, we can therefore grow accustomed to downplaying our own symptoms in return for fear of appearing silly or oversensitive, or even to avoid being patronized. Unfortunately, brushing off women's symptoms can lead to delays in diagnosis and treatment, potentially costing us our quality of life, and if we're unlucky, worse. And this made me think about Kathy's story.
Kath, she's speaking your language. Dr. Moscani she just told your story in those last words, right?
She's a genius. She's a genius.
Yeah. And to have that paragraph there to say, it's not crazy. You're not crazy, right? Doctor, this is important for women who are listening. The term gaslighting, it's okay. It's okay to keep asking questions, right? What would you want to respond to that before we move on, Dr. Russo?
Well, I think the most important thing in what we're doing here and with this podcast and with a lot of these great books that are coming out, and, this menopausal movement that's getting so much national awareness, which I'm thrilled about, is just educating women that they know that with menopause, their symptoms are legitimate and they should be asking for help. The vast majority of women who ask for menopausal therapy do not receive treatment. And I think the most important part is that women just get educated and knowing that they don't have to just live with it. There are solutions. And if they don't get an answer or don't get treatment from somebody for their menopausal symptoms, find somebody else. But they should not be ignored. They should not settle for not being treated. I mean, again, there is always, every case has to be considered individually. There are some risk factors for some people where it is not a proper therapy, but for women just to advocate for themselves and not have to just say, I'm just going to live with it. That's just the way it is. Women live 40% of their lives in menopause. There is a reason why they were living such healthy lives with such minimal issues before, when they had estrogen and progesterone and testosterone plentiful in their body. They all play a pivotal role. We have estrogen and testosterone or androgen receptors all over our body, which is why women have so many different complaints, from dry hair, weight gain, fatigue, low libido. The list goes on. And the reason is because we have these receptors all over our bodies. So there's a myriad of symptoms that go along with it. And mostly, I feel like my job is to sit down and educate patients, to teach them about their hormones. I mean, I think most women generally have heard about estrogen and progesterone. A big part of my practice, I'm a very big advocate for adding testosterone therapy for patients, and it should be done in the right way. And patients should have the right therapeutic doses for all their hormones, I think. But education is power. I mean, most of my patients don't know anything about this. And I feel like the better part of my consultation is to listen to patients, because so many have gone so unheard.
We cannot wrap this up either without talking about the concerns that people may have had in the past. And when you were talking about the last 2 decades of what you called misunderstood data and the Women's Health Initiative. So let me, before you tell us a little bit about that, I want to roll just to get an idea. So if you're watching, how many can relate to this? Weight gain, fatigue, low libido, hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog, mood swings, thinning hair, vaginal dryness, joint muscle aches. Even if you're a man, I think you're going, oh, like these are bad. These are bad symptoms to have. So when people say, I don't know if you really want to resort to hormone replacement treatment, these are just kind of symptoms that are going to come and go. You might want to stick it out. That might be coming from a place of this misunderstood data that you tell us about. Do you want to talk briefly about that Women's Health Initiative?
Yeah, the Women's Health Initiative was a study that had 160,000 postmenopausal women. The vast majority of them were in their 60s and 70s. And it was a study that got cut short early, or ended early, for what was said to be a risk of increased breast cancer. And that ultimately was not the truth. When we dove into the data and analyzed it, it appeared that really wasn't the case. And we know that now. But it ultimately scared everyone off of hormone replacement therapy. In July of 2002, that announcement came out. And if you look at data and reports, you will see a inverse relationship, hormone replacement therapy going down, and you'll see antidepressant use going up. But that is ultimately where the fear of hormone replacement came for patients. And it's, been a very big movement to really educate physicians and patients to not be afraid of hormone replacement therapy.
Kath, is there anything else that you want to add in this journey of yours that has gone from surviving, literally just trying to survive the day, to thriving? Is there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I just hope women some friends of mine too that are listening that they'll actually just think about it before they think they can't optimize their health because of what they've heard. And there's so many benefits of optimizing your hormones versus the risks. I mean, the risks are so low compared to how you could optimize your health and live another 20, 30, 40 more years and be healthy. And I just want women, my friends, and mostly, friends, family, to just think about that before they make their decision and to get informed. There's so much material out there now that they can just get informed and help themselves and help their daughters and their daughters' daughters, et cetera, et cetera.
And Mary Kate is your daughter, but you're right. We can turn the tide, because you know what? Here's the deal, you guys. We know that we're better together. So if you were inspired by this conversation, we'd love it if you could share and follow the Good Stuff family, because this is what we say. We say, together we can, together we will. I see that in you too. I see that you guys it's such a calling on your heart to share what you found. So again, it's individualized, but if you're listening to this, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions surrounding menopausal hormone therapy, or you may know it again as HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Kath, I love your faith in all of this. I love that you said you wouldn't have found it. You believe that you went through it for a reason, right?
100%. If it wasn't for the grace of God, I wouldn't be here. And he led me to Dr. Russo. I believe that 100%.
Yeah. So it's I just realized, I had written down here that it's your story for his glory, but this just came to saved to serve. Maybe, would you say?
Yeah.
Praise God.
That's
great place to wrap this up. Kath, I want to thank you. I know it wasn't easy to share your story. I want to encourage anyone else listening who has a story to do the same. And Dr. Russo, thank you. Just thank you so much for literally taking that leap of faith into a whole different way to practice medicine. Quite frankly, Kath, would you say it's too dramatic to save lives?
100%. Thank you. Thank you both.
I'm very humbled for that compliment. Thank you.
Amen. God bless you both.